Folks, you joined us in mid-conversation. I'm with Joyanne Reid. You know your lover. You have to go subscribe to her Substack. You have to watch her awesome YouTube channel. Folks, Joyanne Reid and I were talking about Van Jones, and I said, Joy, as the representative of all Black people on Earth, can you please explain Van Jones? Just explain what happened to him, his despicable comment on Bill Maher, just Van Jones of it all. All
First of
people
all,
need to know.
first of all, the blacks had a meeting and we said we are trading Van Jones for Jolly Good Ginger. Jolly, welcome to the family. We're taking Jolly Good Ginger. We no longer claim Van. Y'all, I'm sorry. The whites can have him because we going with Jolly. We love Jolly Good Ginger. No, I'm just playing. You know what? I can't explain Van because the reality is, number one, the fact that first of all, it tells you um how the humanity of Palestinians has been so degraded that you can joke. Can you imagine Van Jones or anyone saying dead Jewish baby, dead Jewish baby, dead Jewish baby, and then getting laughs for
And
that?
Diddy,
And then Diddy, dead Jewish baby, dead Jewish baby, Diddy. If you were to say that, your career would be done. Okay. If you were to say dead black baby, dead black baby, dead black baby, your career might not be done, but it would be kind of done.
you'd become a Republican senator.
Well, then actually, you'd probably be in Donald Trump's cabinet if you said dead black baby.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the Palestinians are considered so beneath humanity that you get laughs. And the
Yeah.
laughs almost disturb me more than what Van Jones said. Now, to his credit, he apologized. Good. But the other piece of this that I think people are not focusing on enough is, where did Van Jones get the insane propagandistic idea that the images of dead Palestinian children, we're talking about at this point, low numbers, if we're being, charitably, because we're talking about 10,000 or more children, maybe 20,000 or more children. Where did he get the idea that that is propaganda from Iran? That's Iran and Qatar propaganda? Who's telling him that? Who's giving him that fake news? I want to know who is red pilling Van Jones, who I've heard the tape of him saying with a rap track under it that Palestinians' right to be respected. How did he go from that to joking about Palestinian children being killed? I don't understand it.
There's a lot to unpack there, folks, and I think it's all connected. And we'll unpack the thread here. We'll show you the tapestry of how it's all connected. Van Jones was on Bill Maher's show, and it was the world's worst. It was Van Jones next to Thomas Friedman, one of the rah cheerleaders of the war on terror, a man who is critical now of the war, not because he cares about Palestinians or Arabs or Muslims, only because he cares about Jews and realizes it's terrible for Jews. And then Bill Maher, a man who Muslims, Arabs, and Black people have been telling whites and white liberals and white moderates for 20 years is trash. But people didn't care because Bill Maher, he hates all religions. And Bill Maher, he goes against Trump and Republicans. We'll tolerate his overt Islamophobia, his overt anti-Arab bigotry, right? Remember that? They just
Yeah.
ignored us. One of these white moderates that a lot of whites still love to this day, just like they love their Ezra Kleins, just like they love their Bulwark, just like they love their Bill Kristols, just like they love their Abundance, just like they love all these folks. And we said, there is a blind spot here when it comes to anti-Palestinian bigotry, anti-Arab bigotry, Islamophobia, when it comes to the racism. And they're like, this won't affect us. Go after the undocumented immigrants. Go after the pro-Palestinian activists. Go after the transgender. The blacks, we don't care about the blacks. The Muslims, the Arabs, and here we are, Joy. Here we are. That what we're seeing happening in Gaza, what we're seeing happening in the West Bank, is literally happening in Chicago.
Yeah.
In the sense that you have now occupation, you have masked armed agents working with complete impunity. I've been to the West Bank, folks. This is how they operate. They do what they want, zip tie babies, tear gas you, make shit up, lie, go to schools. They're straight up tear gassing cops. And now people are like, oh my God, it looks like a war zone on American streets. This is unfair. This is wrong. And yet I have to make the parallel that when we fund this and have been funding it for years, and when we see it happening to Black and brown people, America is like, meh, am I out of pocket here, Joy?
You know what? When you just said that, it was like a revelation to me. And thank you for putting it that way, because I have been trying to sort of figure out a way to explain it. And I think you just did it so succinctly, Waj. It's the Israelization of
Mm,
American society, right? In the West Bank or in Gaza, if you are Palestinian, the Israeli authorities and police have no rights that you have no rights that they need respect. You have no rights that they need respect. You can only go on the roads they tell you to go on. You can only live where they let you live until the settlers show up, put a gun to your head, and take your farm and kick you out. You are essentially beneath humanity. You are second or third or fourth class. You're not even a citizen. You are a subject, not a citizen. The IDF can do unlimited violence against you, and there's no recourse. There's no one for you to go to. There's no one for you to turn to. And if you are a Palestinian, whether you are a Christian or a Muslim, as long as you are Palestinian, as long as you are a Palestinian Arab, they are going to label you a terrorist. They're going to say you're Hamas, even if you're in the West Bank, which is not where Hamas is, right? You are just a terrorist. If you take that exact same model and place it here, that means if you are brown, they're going to say you're Tren de Aragua.
there
Whether
you go.
you've even heard of Tren de Aragua or not, they're just going to, without any trial. This is the way they do it to Palestinians in Israel. There's no trial. You just get rounded up, picked up, beaten up, and thrown into jail, and then you are a political prisoner, disappeared. That is now literally what's happening to brown people. You're brown, you're Tren de Aragua. They don't have to adjudicate it. They don't have to try you. They don't have to prove it before a judge. Doesn't matter. If you're brown, they're going to just say you're Tren de Aragua and treat you accordingly. If you are black, they're just going to say that you are a criminal. You're a criminal or you're DEI, meaning you don't have any rights either. No right to your job, no right to your accomplishments in education, no right to go to college. You have no rights. You are DEI. We just dehumanize you and place you in this bucket we've created that we're going to say you're just DEI. You don't need anything. And the same thing is happening to anyone who is anti-fascism. If you are against fascism, meaning you're an anti-fascist, you do not want fascism, now you are Antifa. That means if you are the Ford Foundation, a university, if you are an organization that's anti-fascist, if you are a charity that's anti-fascist, you're now Antifa, and they can treat you without adjudication, without a judge. You also have no rights. It is, and now to add to this Israelization of the way we behave, if we want to call you Tren de Aragua and call you a narco terrorist without any adjudication, we can go outside our borders. The same
Mm.
Israel can go outside its borders into Iran or into any country it wants and bomb the shit out of them and kill you. Now we're saying we get to act like Bibi's Israel. Now, if you're in a boat in the Caribbean, we get to behave the same way Bibi gets to behave toward his neighbors, and we get to now bomb you and kill you, and then afterwards label you a terrorist and a narco terrorist. It is if our two societies are merging in the treatment of non-white people that they simply do not want to be full citizens. It is an absolute merger of the way they behave. And I will add one more thing. Know that a lot of our police departments get their training in how to brutalize mainly Black and brown people from the IDF. So
Yep.
they already are training our police how to be more brutal. And then they practice that brutality on Palestinians. They're now Palestinianizing, if you want to create a word, every American who is not white and conservative.
It's the Israelization of America that's even more succinct, and this is why you had the show. You could put it in these nice, catchy terms, and folks, it's been happening for decades now. And what we have been saying that the war on terror, the creation of the war on terror, that was a choice by America after 1904 and hijackers brought down the two towers. That was the creation of ICE. ICE is a modern concept. It did not exist in the 20th century. The creation of Patriot Act, the mass surveillance, the steroid injection to the military-industrial complex, the forever wars, labeling us versus them, the type of material law for that law that they created for foreign support for foreign terrorism. They went
Yeah,
after NGOs and nonprofits, and the rest of us, especially those who are Muslim and Arab, we said, y'all better be careful, America, because this can and will be weaponized by a president one day against you.
that's
And
right.
people are like, eh. Who cares about the Muslims? Who cares about the Arabs? Who cares about the Palestinians? Who cares about the undocumented? Who cares about the pro-Palestinian activists? Who cares about Mahmoud Khalil? Who cares about Rameza Ozturk? Who cares about Badr Suri Khan, who just picked up right here in Georgetown because he's married to a Palestinian woman? We don't care about that. Let go ahead, straight up detain them without due process, keep them in some detention center in Louisiana. Hell, take all these brown people, straight up kidnap them in the middle of the night, send them on a plane to a friggin' CCOT, a prison in El Salvador, where we are going to give $6 million of our money to Bukele and just disappear them. And people are like, I feel safe. It's not going to bother me. I'm just being blunt, folks. I'm being blunt. Black and brown lives do not matter as much as white lives. I've said it before. I'll say it again. In this country, white lives matter more. White tears matter more. White pain matters more. White rage matters more. And now what you're seeing, unfortunately, it's the world's worst I told you so, especially in Chicago. And Donald Trump has had a racist boner for Chicago since forever. Then he's also going to go after Baltimore. And if Zoran Mamdani wins, which he will, I'm telling you, he's going to unleash hell on New York
Yeah.
as revenge. How dare they reject me and embrace this brown Muslim, right? But now you're seeing it's not just limited to black and brown people, Joy. You're seeing there's body slamming a 79-year-old white man. They're
Yes.
going after kids. They're going after cops. And again, folks, if you've never been to the West Bank, I've been there. I'm not Palestinian. It doesn't matter. I was walking and I was with a hijabi, a woman who wears a hijab. So all of a sudden I became Palestinian. You get assaulted by the idea. My blue passport didn't matter. The fact that I was visiting didn't matter. They didn't care. And then it's so absurd. I was standing next to some light colored, whitish looking Jews, but they thought I was Sephardic. They thought specifically I might have been a Yemeni Jew. So then someone mistook me for a Jew. That's how ridiculous it is. So when they mistook me for a Yemeni Jew, that's when a girl, Joy, like an American girl with an American accent who did Aliyah, who did who traveled to the West Bank. She chatted me up. I'm married at this time, right? So I don't know. I'm a middle-aged man. I don't know when girls are hitting on me. So then later on, 10 minutes later, people are like, "Hey, did your wife know that girl was chatting you up?" I'm like, "Really? But I'm Pakistani. I'm Muslim." She goes, "Doesn't matter. She thought you were a Yemeni Jew." I'm like, "Oh." And that same night, as we were walking back, I was with two American hijabi women who were brown skinned and two Israeli women who were older, saw us, stopped, said something inappropriate in Hebrew, and then spit at us. Just like that, I became Palestinian. And you've been there, you've seen it. They don't care.
No,
Some
I've
of these
never been.
settlers.
I have never been.
Oh, you've never been.
No,
Yeah.
no,
No, they don't
and
care. You're
to be
blue.
honest with you, I wouldn't go now only because I would love to go. Ta-Nehisi Coates got a chance to go, and I've always wanted to go, but I don't trust their IDF. They're killing journalists.
Yeah.
I'm just interested. I have a fascination with the region, but I've never been there. And at this moment, in this time, I'd be afraid to go. They're assassinating journalists that they don't like, And I've interviewed Israeli officials who, the last time I had one of the Israeli officials on the readout, they said to me, and to me it seemed a bit menacing. He said, "We've been watching your show, and so I want to make sure that we can correct some of the things that you've gotten wrong."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And I took it kind of as a threat. And I know they have no chill. They've killed American journalists, and the US has done nothing. And do
Nothing.
I believe this regime? I'm not even sure the Biden regime would have done anything. So, because
Nope.
they haven't done shit about them killing journalists with blue passports. They've killed. So I'm like, yeah, I'm scared of over there personally in this moment. That regime over there too crazy. But I love that you have said that because Ta-Nehisi Coates did go. And Ta-Nehisi Coates said that when he was in the West Bank, all he could feel was Jim Crow and the
Yeah.
way that Jim Crow operated. The countries align their strategies. Remember, the German Nazis learned how to abuse Jewish Germans from us. They took Jim Crow and they modeled their treatment of Jewish Germans on us, on Jim Crow. And so all of these evils speak to each other. And what they're doing in Israel is creating a Jim Crow system of apartheid, which
Yep.
is reflective not just of American Jim Crow, but of apartheid in South Africa, which was their ally. When apartheid was active in South Africa, their two allies in the world were the United States and Israel, who were with them to the bitter end because they understood that what the white South Africans were doing was the same thing that they're doing, right? The white South Africans were saying, God gave us your land, Africans. God said it's ours, and therefore you have no rights that we need respect. You can work for us, you can be maids, and you can be butlers and drivers, but you cannot vote and you cannot have rights. In the West Bank and Gaza, they don't get to vote. They're always like, well, the Arabs get to vote in Israel. Yeah, inside of Israel proper, but in the West Bank, they're literally subjects. They do not have any rights at all. And so the reality is it's Jim Crow and apartheid. That's been adjudicated now. That's a fact in the International Court of Justice. And now what you're seeing is that brown people here are being subjected to this secondary sub citizenship in which if you're brown and a masked man who you can't even verify is a Fed comes up to you and takes you physically, you can't fight him because you might get charged with a crime. You have to go into whatever prison they're shipping you to around the world. You don't get a trial. You don't
Nope.
get a hearing. There's no habeas corpus. You are not a citizen. You are nothing. You're not even an undocumented person anymore. Because even if you're documented, even if you're a citizen, if you're brown, the Supreme Court has said they can take you physically, take your body, and there's nothing you can do about it until you prove that you're a citizen. And if you are Black, you are re-subjected to the kind of sub-citizenship you had before the civil rights movement, where your children can be dragged out of bed like Emmett Till was, thrown
Chicago.
into the back of a U-Haul and effectively kidnapped and zip-tied like a criminal for being a Black child who was near brown people. And then they're going to say those brown people were Trende Arabo with no proof. They don't have to prove it. They can just say, you're brown, you're Trende Arabo, you can go. And the last thing I'll add is white folks who think you're going to get away from this, your version, the N-word for Black folks is DEI. They've taken our word, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and turned it into the N word. If you are a Black person and they don't like you, they say you're a DEI. You're a D. That's their new N word for us, right? If you are a brown person, their new word for you is illegals. That's just the N word. If you say illegals, I know you're a racist because your word for a brown person you don't like and who's in a space you don't want is illegals. That is a swear word that basically means you are a subhuman who I can abuse and do what I want to. But if you're white, they got a word for your ass too. They got two for you. Your N words are woke and Antifa.
Mm.
And if they say you're woke, there's nothing they can't do to you. If you're a white person, they can do it. And if they say you're Antifa, which just means anti-fascist, if you oppose fascism and you're white, trust and believe that's the N word for you. And you also have no rights they need to respect. So that's why this is everybody's problem. Everybody's problem.
And, I'm so glad you mentioned that about Antifa, folks. What we've been saying here on the left hook for a while is that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are gearing up for martial law. And people said,
Yes.
oh, you're exaggerating. And I said, you aren't paying attention. Trust the evidence of your eyes and ears. And I just want to just bring some facts and then give it back to Joy. In October, Donald Trump, before he was elected, promised, threatened to unleash the National Guard and the military against the enemy from within. He quoted Hitler. Lo and behold, what's happening in Chicago and LA and DC, and what he wants to do is he has unleashed the National Guard. And in some places in LA, he's unleashed the military and ICE, masked armed thugs who now have the budget comparable to countries spending their money on the military, who operate with complete impunity and now have 10,000 agents thanks to the big, beautiful bill that adds $3 trillion to the debt. Now, as he's doing that, he has tried to create a Reichstag fire. You can also see parallels with Nazi Germany. Charlie Kirk's murder was supposed to be the Reichstag fire. And if you remember,
Mhm.
Charlie Kirk was murdered before there was any suspect, before there was any motive. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, went in front of the world and blamed what? Left-wing rhetoric, left-wing violence. Even now, even though there's one suspect, Tyler Robinson, completely out of the news, what did they say? They, them. Stephen
Yeah.
Miller went on TV and said Charlie Kirk's final message to me was to take on left-wing terrorism, right? So you've been seeing it for the past 3 weeks. That was a Reichstag fire. Then 2 weeks ago, Joshua Johns, the 29-year-old white man radicalized online who shot ICE detainees, that was their second Reichstag fire. He left behind anti-ICE bullets. And then Stephen Miller, as of the last 2 weeks, and especially over the weekend, said, anyone who attacks ICE and immigration, these people are terrorists. And what did Donald Trump do? On his own, unilaterally, he said Antifa, which is not an organization, is a terrorist organization. All right. He's called Antifa a terrorist organization. Yesterday, he said he's open to using the Insurrection Act. The
That's right.
Insurrection Act allows the president to federalize the National Guard and send the military to American streets and cities. The Posse Comitatus Act doesn't apply, right? Also, what has Stephen Miller said? We're under invasion. He said that in the summer, we're under invasion. So guess what? We can suspend the writ to habeas corpus. And also, I can invoke the Alien Enemies Act. And he used
Mhm.
the word insurrection. And then Ken Klippenstein last week came up with the memo where he produced the memo, Donald Trump's National Security Presidential Memo 7, Joy, which says that this administration is now using words and thoughts that are indicators of left-wing terrorism.
Mm,
Some of these words and thoughts are anti-ICE sentiment, anti-Christian sentiment. So, Joy, when you talk about the
mm,
Israelization of America, what more do you need to see? Because in the West Bank, folks, you got two different laws for two different people.
mhm.
Apartheid. Israeli settlers, a dude from Brooklyn who's Jewish, can go to the West Bank right now and live under Israeli law.
That's right.
A Palestinian living there for generations lives under military law. The IDF does what it wants with impunity. You saw what the IDF is doing in Gaza. They just make shit up. They lie or they say whatever. Hamas, they have detained so many kids. They have literally arrested and kidnapped and tortured people with impunity. And furthermore, Joy, I think why it's so frightening and why I think talking about Venezuela, because I don't think enough people are talking about Venezuela. Donald Trump has produced no evidence. He
None.
has unilaterally murdered these Venezuelans in four strikes and refused to produce the evidence. And he simply says, I have the right to do it because they're drug traffickers. And now the United States is at war with drug traffickers. Even if you're at war with drug traffickers, you cannot unilaterally, extrajudicially kill them. So I say all of that, Joy,
Mhm.
and then give it to you. What do you think they are going to do to the rest of us in blue cities?
Oh, 100%. You've laid it out perfectly. And you forget their first Reichstag fire was during the campaign when a registered Republican whose family are pure MAGA took a shot at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But they keep on using the phrase they tried to
Right.
kill Donald Trump and imply that it is the left when this kid was clearly on the right. And there's no indication. And by the way, where's the journalist? Where are the journalists? Jake Tapper was doing text interviews with Donald Trump that he couldn't even confirm was Donald Trump at the other end of the phone. Lawrence O'Donnell called him out on it. It's like, oh, that's an interview now? You just text with Trump and you just assume that's Trump answering you? Where is Jake Tapper? Where are the investigative journalists finding out more information about that guy who took a shot at Trump? His whole family are MAGA. The whole family of the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, MAGA. The guy who, as you said, the kid who shot up a school in Colorado that same day,
Yeah.
MAGA. Right wing shooters are, and now we have a judge whose house spontaneously goes up in flames in South Carolina after she defies Donald Trump. And we don't know who did it, but it's sure suspicious. Her husband was a former Democratic lawmaker. The regime, including Stephen Miller, were screaming about her being a lawbreaker and an insurrectionist for daring to defy Trump. They're essentially threatening any judge that doesn't rule for Trump to declare them to be Antifa, them to be enemies of the state. Where it's going is where you think it's going. Why? Where it seems like it's going is that anyone who defies Donald Trump or displeases MAGA will be labeled Antifa. Again, a made up thing. There is no such organization called Antifa. That's not me. That's Chris Wray, who was the lifelong Republican former FBI director who testified under oath in March of 2021 that the biggest national security threat to the country are racially motivated violent extremists from the right. There's negligible amounts of left-wing terrorism that does exist in pockets, but it is nowhere near even today with slightly more than it's not even close to the amount of right-wing terrorism mainly committed by white right-wing men who are politically motivated for Trump on the MAGA side. So where it's going is, though, they're going to keep lying and saying Tren de Aragua is everywhere. Have you ever heard of Tren de Aragua before this year? I bet you didn't. It's not like the Bloods and the Crips, who we all knew were real. At least they existed, right? We knew they were around. Anyone brown is
That's
going to
correct.
be labeled Tren de Aragua, meaning they can take any brown person. The state with the most Venezuelans is Florida. Most of the Venezuelan Americans are Republicans, but they are stripping them of their legal protections, turning them into undocumented immigrants. They were documented until Trump said, no, you're not. You're now undocumented. So anyone brown will be presumed to be Venezuelan. And if they presume you to be Venezuelan, they will presume you to be Tren de Aragua. This is ethnic cleansing. They're going to say any brown person is automatically, without adjudication, Tren de Aragua, deport. Any black person, they're going to declare you to be an enemy of the state, resistant to the state, resistant to MAGA, deportable, even if you're an American citizen. They've already deported one guy who's an American to Jamaica. They're testing whether they can do it to blacks. They're going to take any Asian person, if you're Southeast Asian, your family came from India, they're going to say, yeah, okay, enemy of the state, you're going to go as well. They're going to mass deport and mass detain anyone that they believe is anti-Trump and anti-fascist. And if you're white, your version of the N-word is Antifa. If you are a white American who opposes fascism, they will declare you to be an enemy of the state, deportable, incarcerable, and there's no adjudication, no rights. And as soon as he declares martial law, if y'all think that under he declares the Insurrection Act, we're going to have an election in 2026, you can fix it. I got a whole bridge to sell you. They're not going to allow free and fair elections. They're going to keep this power. They're going to keep it as long as they can and keep us under a version of martial law. If you don't believe it can happen here, you're the problem. Because
That's
the
right.
fact is, they use our exceptionalism, our belief in exceptionalism against us. They use our belief that we can't become a fascist country against us. And so we have to figure out a way to respond. And the last thing I'll add with that, South Africa already faced this version of apartheid. They're building a sort of South Africa in America, white South Africa in America. Except there are white people that are also going to be under apartheid because they're quote unquote Antifa. What we have to do, number one, is reclaim language. Don't
Mm,
let anyone use the term Antifa. Make them say the whole word, anti-fascist. So when they say, we're fighting Antifa, you say, oh, you're fighting anti-fascists? When they say, we don't want DEI, you say, oh, you don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion? Don't let them steal words. Use language against them the way they use it against us and reclaim the language that they are nicking from us. The second thing is you need to shop your values. What forced Disney to have some balls, Bob Iger didn't suddenly grow us a pair. He lost $6 billion when people, and it wasn't spontaneous, you'd think it was, but it was organized, when consumers said, fuck you, man. If you're not going to keep Jimmy Kimmel on the air, we're not going to subscribe to ESPN, Hulu, and Disney Plus. Fuck you. And when people said that, he went, oh my God, we're losing money. And suddenly Jimmy Kimmel came back on the air. He didn't apologize. He didn't give no money to Turning Point USA. He didn't do shit. He came back on sight unseen. Money is the only language that they
yep.
understand. We need to start using our money to make our message heard by the cowardly corporations who refuse to fight. If Jake Tapper's doing text interviews with Trump, stop watching CNN. Stop giving him your viewership. Stop doing business with the, what do you call it, Skydance? They want to let this substacker run
Very wise.
CBS News. You should stop watching CBS Mornings where they call Ta-Nehisi Coates a terrorist. You should stop watching Poor 60 Minutes, which they're going to turn into the Israel defense, hour every Sunday. You should stop watching anything on CBS. Cost them money. And if there are sponsors still advertising on CBS, fuck off as well. Don't do business with anyone who does business with fascists. Boycotts absolutely work.
Amen. Let me ask you two more questions. You led up exactly the question I wanted to ask you and show you folks how it's all connected. Barry Weiss, Barry Weiss cut her teeth going after Palestinian activists in Colombia. Barry Weiss was, I guess you could say, a colleague of mine at New York Times. I did an hour Substack on spilling some tea yesterday. Go back and watch it, folks. Barry Weiss has failed up in life repeatedly because Barry Weiss has cozied up to the agenda of the bro-oligarchy and the Israeli donors, including Larry Ellison, who's on again, off again, the richest man on earth, who is a pro-Israel right-wing Trumper whose Nepo baby son, David Ellison, as Joy just mentioned, that merger between Paramount and Skydance, guess who's running Paramount now? David Ellison.
Hmm.
And David Ellison, the Nepo son of Larry Ellison, has decided to buy Barry Weiss's free press for $150 million. My interviews, my conversations with Joy on YouTube get more views than many of the free press views. So if anyone's got 150 million, here I am, bro. I'm driving a minivan. Barry Weiss was brought in because the free press is not about freedom. It's about punching down against the woke, against the left, against pro-Palestinian activists, running interference for Israel,
Yeah.
and specifically promoting the agenda of the bro-oligarchy. The person who's in the ear of Barry Weiss, according to the New York Times profile, is David Sachs, part and
Mm.
parcel of the South African PayPal bro-oligarchy, who is Donald Trump's czar of AI, right? It is a salon for the privileged laments of the bro-oligarchy who want to crush the woke. And now it has been brought on. And specifically, I know you all think we're crazy, folks. We tried to bring all the receipts. The reason why 41-year-old friggin' mediocre as hell Substacker Barry Weiss is not going to be in charge of CBS News is because she echoes the pro-Israel and pro-oligarchy agenda of David Ellison, and Larry Ellison. So again, we cannot escape the occupation of Palestinians. We cannot escape the Israelization of America. Your take on Barry Weiss now running CBS News, essentially.
It's DEI for right wingers.
Mhm.
I mean, it's affirmative action for conservatives. Essentially, what they're saying is naturally coming out from the New York Times, she would not have earned the right to run CBS News. She's never run a newsroom ever, but she gets to skip the more qualified people because she has the right ideology. That is literally what they claim affirmative action and DEI are. When in fact, with affirmative action and DEI, you actually have to have the qualifications plus have the demographic characteristic in order to get the job. And I'll give you the example of pilots, which they try to claim are just walking in off the street, and because they're Black, they get to sit down behind the wheel of a 747 and fly it. Well, that's insane because if that was what DEI was, why is it that there's never been a Black pilot behind a crashed airliner? They've all been white. The reason for that is there are very few Black pilots, but the Black pilots have had to jump through 20,000 times more hoops in
That's right.
order to get to fly. So once a Black pilot clears the extra hurdles that are put in front of them to sit behind the wheel of that 747, they're more qualified than the white pilots by definition because of the extra hoops they had to go through. So when I see a Black pilot, I say, thank God this plane gonna land because go back and look at all the major crazy pilot crashes. Ain't been no Black pilots. They've all been white mostly. And so that's the reality is that DEI requires you to be qualified. And then of the qualified people, they make an extra effort to go for somebody who's of color or that's a woman or that's an Appalachian white, like JD Vance. That's how he got into
Mm,
Yale Law. And
mm.
so that's the reality. They try to find diversity, either economic, gender dynamic, all of those kind of diversities, but you have to be qualified in order to get in. That's how affirmative action DEI work. So I think what she is now getting is what they think DEI is, meaning you take an unqualified white woman because she's a conservative. It's the way Amy Coney Barrett got on the Supreme Court. They said, we need a right winger. Now, she may not be the most qualified right winger. Her qualifications pale in comparison to Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's
Mm.
not a summa cum laude Harvard law graduate who's had every role in the legal jurisprudence, from being a public defender all the way to being a district court judge in the DC circuit. She's not, but she's a right-wing woman, and they needed a right-wing woman, so she fit the bill. They actually practice the version of DEI and affirmative action they claim the other side practices. So that's what she's literally getting that job because they know that she will enforce on these far superior and more qualified journalists who now work for her. Think about this for a second, watch out. If Walter Cronkite was still alive, he would now be reporting to Bari Weiss. He
Painful.
would be reporting to her. That is crazy. She is now in charge of one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic newsrooms ever. If Edward R. Murrow still was alive, he would be reporting to this substacker. Not because she's more qualified or a better journalist than him, but because the ideological bosses want that newsroom to be nice to Trump,
Yep.
to be nice to MAGA, and to be nice to Israel. And that is what they're going to do. And if you keep watching, that's on you. You're enabling it. And so we have the power to just turn it off. Turn the TV off. Like that, like Kendrick Lamar said. Stop watching it. If Skydance makes a movie and you know Skydance was behind it, don't go. Don't buy a ticket. Ignore it. Make MAGA watch their shit. Make MAGA, who generally are broke rural people, let them figure out how to make Skydance richer. You shouldn't do it. You should literally, it's not even really a boycott. It's choosing to vote with your dollars, vote with your money, and look, take that money and put it in a rainy day fund for when this country collapses and the AI collapse happens. Because, that's a bubble, right? So when AI takes the economy down, you're going to need them extra coins.
And also crypto, right? When the crypto bubble burst.
The crash is coming.
It's affirmative action for conservatives, something I've been saying for a long time. Affirmative action for conservatives in media. And if you don't believe me and Joy, if Barry Weiss isn't enough for you, I give you Scott Jennings. Literally hijacking A.B. Phillips' show every single day and being rewarded for it. I have stories. Joy has stories. I've always said it's affirmative action for white folks. One quick story I'll say
Megyn
before.
Kelly. Can I just add Megyn Kelly?
Oh, yeah, please.
You're telling me that back in the day, they made Megyn Kelly the replacement for Tamron Hall. Tamron Hall was actually a beloved, successful member of the Today Show team. They swapped her out for Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly is neither warm, nor kind, nor interesting. She then gets a dayside show where she's basically doing her version of what Tamron Hall does successfully for ABC, now that she has her own talk show. Megyn Kelly's flopped because trying to make her fun and girlfriendy failed because that's not who she is. She has a miserable, cruel, wicked, horrible personality, and it didn't work. They lined up for her a prime time interview with Vladimir Putin. Do you remember it? Do you remember a clip from it? Can you quote anything from it? It was a failure. It was a failure. But she has failed up as well. They paid her to leave MSNBC because
$69
failed days out.
million. $69 million. I keep the receipts. I brought it out against her last week while she was whining. She had no response to me. I said, Megyn Kelly, you literally have crawled back. I think I'm paraphrasing exactly what I told her on Twitter, and she had no response. I said, you crawl back to the same hateful swamp of people who applauded when Trump said you had blood coming out of your holes.
That's right.
You literally were given $69 million for a show that flopped, and then you got the bag. Your show was canceled in less than a year. You failed up in life.
Yes.
Be grateful. Thank God. Why are you so miserable? She had no response to me.
No response. The most miserable rich person I've ever seen in my life. That's the most unhappy rich lady. I say that her show should really be called My Mean Ex-Wife. Because that's what she reminded me of. Everybody Mean Ex-Wife. That was what her podcast. She should rename her podcast Your Mean Ex-Wife, starring Megyn Kelly. She just gets on there and bitches and whines about black women. She hates this week. She hates Jamel Hill. Next week she hates Tiffany Cross. Next week after that, she hates Nicole Hannah Jones. She just finds different black women to Karen about. Or maybe she should be called I Am a Blonde Karen. And that's her whole show. Does she do anything else but bitch and moan about black people? I died in Lamb. She's just a mean, miserable blonde. She's like mean, angry Barbie. She's like an angry,
and like
old
what
Barbie.
more do you want?
She's aging poorly as well.
The interesting thing is, though, I mean, really, real quick, I'll let you go in 5 minutes, Joy. I'm having too much fun. But I was thinking about this. Why are these people so miserable? Because let's just stick on Megyn Kelly. God gave you $69 million to fail. maybe there was like some prayer, maybe your mom and dad like helped some poor people, there was some grace, some benediction on you, and the Lord above had said, "You're a miserable, cruel person who wants Santa to be white. Let me give you a $69 million bag, even though you replaced Tamron Hall and Al Roker in their show, and then you just live your life. You got $69 million
He got
to fill
fired
up
for
your life."
trying to promote blackface. See, but let me remember. Let me just say something. I got fired by NBC Universal probably for talking too much about Gaza and white supremacy.
Yes.
She got fired for promoting blackface and got $69 million and still mad.
She's still, and she actually, you know what? I don't think she even got fired. I think her show was so unsuccessful. The ratings were so bad. They're like, let's just cut.
Please
So
just go.
her
They said, just
show
go.
didn't
We'll
even
pay you.
last,
Just go.
folks. Her show didn't. And I want to just tell people how media works. Everyone thinks, oh, it's hella liberal.
Yeah.
NBC replaced Tamron Hall and Al Roker show, which was popular, with Megyn Kelly, who appealed to white centrists who have long abandoned them. They gave her $69 billion for a shitty show, which just completely flopped. They gave her the full $69 million. The show didn't last a year, and then she crawled back to MAGA and is even more mean than the mean friggin' Karen version that she was. And she's still so miserable. And they always hate black women. And JD Vance, who's married to a brown woman, last week he comes out, Joy, I had to ask you this. And all the things that are happening in the world, Gaza, the economy, which is going
Yeah.
in the shitter, measles is skyrocketing, war with potentially Venezuela, all the stuff that's happening, he decides, Mr. Mascara, to tweet against you and say, Joanne Reid, why can't you be more grateful? And the question I have for you, and I really have this sincere question. I was going to ask my co-host Danielle this. Why are they so obsessed with black women? Like, why?
I think it's because we're the most resistant to MAGA and to Trump. We are still the 92% who were the hell no group. Out of all of the groups, demographic groups in America, black women are the most resistant to MAGA. Other than Candace Owens, who we don't claim, by the way, we're also trading her out as well. We're going to figure out who we get in exchange for her, but we don't want her either. I think we'll take Kelly Clarkson. We'll take Kelly Clarkson,
Kelly's
and
nice.
y'all can have her. We want Kelly because Kelly can sing. But
This
I
is the
mean,
official trade. I just want breaking news, official trade from the black delegation. Joanne Reid is proposing the trade. Candace Owens for Kelly Clarkson. And we need a representative of the white delegation to see if this is acceptable.
please let us know. Let us know. We're going to need your answer within 48 hours. This offer expires in 48 hours. And don't forget that we also we want Jolly Good Ginger, and we're going to hand you Van Jones. So make sure that all gets to the white delegation. Let us know that these are the things that we want. But I think I think the reason is that black women will never ever on the main. There are some of us who sell out, but on the main, black women just say hell no to right wingery, to MAGA. We vote consistently progressive. She was so rude to Jane Fonda, who Cheryl, you ain't lying.
Oh, yeah.
That's why she
Remember
couldn't get
plastic surgery?
celebrities.
The
She
plastic
was, yeah,
surgery
Megan
question.
was rude to Jane Fonda and talked about her being you looking good for 80. And she was also rude to the cast of Will and Grace. I can tell you a little inside tea, by the way. I was still at NBC Universal, obviously, during when she was there. Some of my interns that I was teaching at Syracuse at the time, and they had to have internships. They were in the city. And some of my interns, their job used to be to have to go to the commissary, the lunchroom, and try to round up people to go and sit in her audience because they couldn't get an audience. They couldn't
Right.
get people to want to come and sit in her audience because it was so boring. And then at one point, they tried to make her fun and have her dance,
With
and
Huda
people were just
and the others,
crazy.
right? I remember that.
Yeah, remember they tried to make her like dance and because she was so unpleasant. So yeah, I think that the obsession with black women is that we will not bend the knee ever to MAGA. And on JD Vance specifically, I'm gonna do this tea for you, specifically for you, Waj. We're gonna debut this tea here. I have receipts of JD Vance when he was woke. People on the media side believe that this video no longer exists, but a member of my team has located my interview with JD Vance. I'm not going to say any more than that. I have tea, and we're going to debut it on the Joy Reid Show on YouTube. in the 7 o'clock hour on Wednesday. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Ooh.
Y'all want that? I'm going to spill the tea. You heard it here first on the left hook. We got receipts, JD. So you want to come for me? I'm going to come for you. How about that?
Oh, I love it. That's going to be Wednesday, 7 p.m. at Joy Reid, JD Vance, the man who called Trump America's Hitler,
Yeah.
the man who is married to a brown woman and has brown kids, a man who was against Donald Trump but now is his VP, and a man who decides, the most important thing for me to do as the vice president is tweet against Joyanne Reid and
He ain't
ask
got shit
her.
to do. And by the
Yeah,
way, can I just say all y'all people who were like, Kamala Harris, what has she done as vice president? What has she done? Y'all, I hope you have that same smoke for JD Vance, who appears to just tweet all day and go on vacations.
yeah, to blue cities and
Yeah.
blue states. My final question. That again, folks, the tea is going to be spilled 7 p.m. Wednesday at Joy Reid show. Ooh, I can't wait.
The
My
show
final
starts at
question.
6. It's from 6 to 8, but we're going to do the JD piece in the 7 o'clock hour. So come on over.
Can are couches involved? Can I ask?
Now, you know what? I can't say if he
All
was
right.
sitting on the couch, but I fear for whatever sofa he's next to, because
Yeah,
I think, in this moment, we no longer have real protection for sexual assault from the feds, and the federal administration don't care about sexual assault. So I fear any sofa that he's near.
yeah. JD Vance is like the occupier. He's like ICE agents, and the couch is like the rest of us, just praying for safety. Too soon or not soon
Too
enough?
soon.
The, fi-
It's
the
never
final
too soon.
The final question I have is today's October 7th. It's the
Yeah,
2 year, for lack of a better word, anniversary of when Hamas engaged in its horrible terrorist attacks, and Israel then responded in an ongoing genocidal campaign that has killed more than 65,000. That's a low number of Palestinians, and also 35,000 strikes against Syria, Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and Palestinians. The occupation is ongoing, and we still don't have enough Democrats using the G word, genocide. Words matter. Furthermore, speaking about words and phrases that matter, ICE is now occupying parts of Chicago and LA and terrorizing Americans, and we still don't have Democrats saying abolish ICE. A
yeah,
question I just asked Qasim Rashid an hour ago, I want to ask you, what more evidence do people, especially our leaders, need to see to be able to call out a thing for what it is? To use the word genocide to describe Israel's conduct in Gaza, which then triggers both moral and legal responsibility for the United States, the most powerful country on earth, to intervene. And folks, if we intervene overnight, forget overnight, within 1 hour, Israel has to stop.
yeah.
If Donald Trump picks up the phone and says, no more weapons, no more money, Israel cannot do it. And then what more do people need to see, especially freaking Democrats, to say abolish ICE? Why do we need this terrorist organization literally zip tying our children and
Yeah.
friggin' tear gassing cops? I give you the final word.
I will say, as far as October 7, we had Professor Norman Finkelstein on the Joy Reid show last on Monday night, and he made the excellent point that when it comes to the U.S. reaction to 9/11, which was for the George W. Bush administration to use a terrifying terrorist attack by Al Qaeda as an opportunity for them to invade a country that had nothing to do with it, Iraq, in order to get control of their oil. People who are bad minded, like the old black folk used to say, will take any tragedy or catastrophe and turn it to their own ends. If you think about what the George W. Bush administration did with 9/11, they took the pain and fear and terror that we all felt after 9/11 and morphed that into building the unitary executive theory, which Trump is now using to terrorize us. They started that then. John Yoo created the torture memo. They
Yep.
started reading our library materials, spying on knitting circles of peacenik old women, spying on anti war protesters, spying on mosques, spying on peaceful Muslims who are simply trying to pray, terrorizing Muslim communities, lying about Muslims, including Donald Trump lying and claiming that he saw Muslims cheering when he didn't have any way to even see what was happening near the Twin Towers. They stopped Muslims from building a mosque which had already been approved in New York City, treated Muslims like third-class citizens, took away people's right to due process. Look at all the damage that was done then when they
Yep.
practiced what they're now perfecting now. The Heritage Foundation existed then as well. They use these opportunities to abuse our civil liberties and abuse the Constitution. Fast forward to today, Donald Trump is simply George W. Bush, but even more wicked and perhaps even dumber and perhaps a little bit a senile version of George W. Bush. Maybe that's why George W. Bush is so quiet, because he tried to pull off the same thing in after 9/11 that Trump is successfully pulling off now with this unitary executive super theory, right? They're destroying our country and destabilizing it for the purposes of two things: for rich people, billionaires, the super rich, to achieve zero taxation and to achieve deregulation of their industries. They are turning over Ohio forests for strip mining and logging. They're stealing water from you in order to give it to these thirsty AI, companies that have to like steal all of the electricity. They're making you pay the electric bills for these AI super centers. They're literally taking a lie, which is that 10 million violent criminal undocumented people were led into the country by Biden, a lie. And they're using that now to strip our civil liberties. They're selling America for parts. They're eating our country and eating the Constitution. And if we let them get away with it, shame on us. This is our fault if we allow America to go, just like we let this devil type of administration back into the White House. I don't even remember your question. I just know I'm mad about it. And we have to stop letting them repeat the same evils over and over, generation to generation. So, right now, I think what's happening is that people are scared. They don't really know how to react, but you need to remember your power. Your power is in your pocketbook. Your power is in your voice. Your power is in your presence. So you need to be present, be in community, and don't be afraid. You should never be afraid of people stupider than you. And they are definitely stupider than we are.
And we have the numbers, folks. And the
Yes.
question is fine. I talked about the use of language, but you took it to a better place. Call a thing for what it is. What's
Yeah.
happening
Oh,
is
I'm sorry. To answer your question, I need to answer your question. I'm so sorry, Walter. I lost your question because I got caught up in the rapture. As a matter of fact, what happened to the rapture? Weren't we supposed to be raptured
a
already?
couple of
I
days ago.
thought we missed the rapture. But yes, when it comes to Democrats, remember, Walter, that Democrats were as complicit in what happened post 9/11 as Republicans. Only Barbara Lee was willing to vote against this eternal war on terror that they're now taking and just retrofitting to use against supposedly Tren de Aragua and all of this. They're using the same theories, but Democrats felt they were afraid to say no. And so they let George W. Bush run wild. Now they seem to be afraid to say no, really, to Donald Trump the way they should. And when it comes to Israel, I don't understand it. This is supposed to be the moral party. This is supposed to be the party of goodness and kindness and caring about people and the poor and the downtrodden. But they stand aside because AIPAC pays them to be quiet. And so Democrats refuse to say it's genocide for the most part. They refuse to endorse Mamdani because he's not pro-Israel. They refuse to stand up. Joe Biden, it is the shame of his presidency
Yep.
that he allowed Israel to commit a genocide on his watch. This happened on his watch. He probably is what cost Kamala Harris the election, even though she didn't want to admit it when I interviewed her. So the reality is Democratic cowardice has enabled Republican wickedness. And they need to
Mhm.
stand up, speak the truth, say what you know is happening. It's the least you can do. You all have a little bit of power. Use it for God's sakes to help us.
You can't both sides genocide. You can't both sides fascism. You can't stay neutral, folks. We're all in it. We're all in it now. It isn't just the transgender, the Palestinians, the undocumented, the Muslims. We're all in it. If you don't believe me, look at Portland, look at Chicago, look at LA, look at DC, look at Gaza. It's all connected. Freedom for all. Or for none of us, folks. And everyone has to be 10 toes down. We have the numbers, folks. We have the
Yes.
numbers. Donald Trump is not popular. He's canceled. The Epstein files aren't going away. The economy is in the shitter. These people are miserable. They're nasty. The more Stephen Miller is shown on TV, the more people are repulsed by him.
Yeah.
These people are also reckless. Look at Pam Bondi. Look at freaking Bongino. Look at Cash Patel. Cash Patel. Hey, hey, Charlie. Hey, I'm at Valhalla. Sorry, too soon. Hey, open the door, guys. Hey, it's me. Hey, I can hear you. hey, and they're like, nah, bro, no one's here. There's more of us. We have more money. And this episode in particular, every time Joy and I speak, they always do clips on Twitter. And oh boy, we have a lot of tea for them. And I'll end with this: is that Joyanne Reid is spilling the tea about JD Vance on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Her show's from 6 to 8. I'm going to have Dr. Anel Shalin and Rula Jabril on in 1 second.
By
Dr.
the way, can
Anel,
I just say, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Wajahan, if people are asking in the chat, it's at thejoyreadshow.com. That's the YouTube channel, but it also streams on Substack. So you can watch the show at thejoyreadshow.com or at joyanneread.com. Either place, that's where it'll be. Sorry.
And folks, for those 2,500 people who joined us late, it's going to be up on my Substack and Joy Substack. I have no paywalls. Everything's free. I'm a terrible capitalist. It's the left hook. And then you got Joyanne Reid's YouTube show and her Substack. And come back in 2 minutes. I have Rula Jabril, who was a guest oftentimes on Joy's show, and Dr. Anel Shalin. Anel was one of the first people of the Biden administration in the State Department to resign over what she said was the Biden administration's complicity in helping Israel. So I got both of them on in 2 minutes. Joy, I kept you on for 30 minutes longer than I said I would, but it was just too much fun. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Take care of yourself. Be kind. Protect yourself. You're a national treasure. Everyone, please go support Joy. And please, please subscribe to her Substack and go to her YouTube channel. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.